All right, so we're gonna. All right, so everybody, this is now a really important topic because it came up. And I have a special guest. Her name is Betsy Rosado. So I have a topic which I think is the best to describe the situation for people who are looking for a career in fashion designing and what it takes to get there, especially those that are determined to pursue this career, because you have to have passion and determination, and you have to get what Betsy Rosado calls you get this outer shell of strength being in it, and other people sometimes take it and think that you're mean or you're being too strong. So I want to ask Betsy to introduce herself and how we know each other. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Betsy Rosado. I met Tina back in the 80s in the fashion industry at a company called Chouse, which I think it's still in business. And I was an assistant to the textile administrator at the time. But then I went on to be Tina's fashion design assistant at another company. So that's how we know each other from the good old days on 6th Avenue in New York.
So Betsy, I just called you about uh I got a message and I was stunned because they said apparently I upset one of the third place winners that I was a judge at. And I'm thinking to myself, upset someone. I'm like, I'm kind of known for being the nicest design director boss or designer in the fashion industry. I was a lot nicer than most. So, what do you have to say about that?
I think that maybe that was a misinterpretation. It could very well be that, they didn't interpret what your constructive criticism was intended, how it was intended. Being in the fashion industry, you definitely have to have a little bit of a tough skin, really. Well, where we came from, New York, you roll with the punches. You get constructive criticism. It's not always delivered in the nicest way. You get it. You keep going. You do the job. You do better. Because at some point you're going to be giving constructive criticism to someone else. It's not intended to be catty or mean, although the fashion industry in New York is known to have that kind of, reputation. But that's not necessarily true for a lot of fashion designers. So, one thing, it's competitive, so you have to be honest. And sometimes being honest isn't what somebody wants to hear.
Yeah, that's true. And then what happens when you don't want to hear that? What do you do?
Well, I think you really have to start to ask yourself, is this where you want to be? And if it is, then you're going to have to take this kind of constructive criticism and redo what you're doing. I Many times I had to redo a project, and it was hard. And the directive was given from an instructor or a boss, and you just have to do it because you're not going to get better. You're not going to learn unless you can take that feedback and utilize that and improve upon what you're doing
Yeah,
in your designs, in your draping, in your fashion industry, in the business, whatever category you're in. It's demanding, and it's even more so demanding when you're independent. When you work for someone else, you really got to step up. But when you work for yourself, you're going to be even tougher than all those other people you think are tough on you.
that is so true. Talk about being hard on yourself, and you're the worst critic. You're the hardest on yourself, whatever you do. So let's go back to the beginning of what did you do and how you struggled to become a fashion designer? Tell me what happened.
Um, well, I knew that I always wanted to be one. I used to sew at home. I used to sketch at home all the time. Anytime I could make doll clothes or, zhuzh up an outfit for a friend, I would do that. But I came from a working class family. Nobody had gone to college in my family, so I had to figure out how to get myself in the fashion industry. So I was pretty savvy. I started working when I was like 16. So I was like, okay, I can get a job in New York. So I got a job in New York. And at that time, there were what you call headhunters. So you'd go to that agency, and that headhunter would find you a job. And they found me a job working down on Wall Street. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so boring. I couldn't stop looking at Sixth Avenue, Seventh Avenue, the fashion industry. So I managed to get the headhunter to find me another position in the fashion industry. And before then, I had overheard while I was walking down the street, there was a gallery show at Parsons. And I walked in and I heard some students talking about student artwork that was there. And one person said, you know, if you work for these fashion design schools, you get free tuition. And I was just like, what? Okay, where do I go? What do I do? And I immediately took that information, and literally the next day, I was applying at FIT and I was applying at Parsons, and I was literally searching for another fashion design school, wherever that might have been in that tri-state area, to apply. And I got both interviews at both schools, and I was eventually hired at FIT. But prior to working at FIT, I was working with you, Tina, in the fashion design industry. And I hustled. I hustled. I didn't wait for anybody to give me a handout. I just took information and I figured it out. I didn't have Google. We didn't have Google. We didn't have cell phones.
You
We
didn't
just
have
had to
any of
figure
that
it out.
stuff. Nope,
Pick
nope.
up the phone, make some phone calls, get on the train, make the trip, and hope that I'm going in the right direction. And if I wasn't, I'd pivot, ask somebody for directions. Where am I going? Where's, and it worked out. It worked out because I was at FIT and I got a lot of really good education from that, and a lot of good connections in the industry, and attended tons of fashion shows. So it was one foot in front of the other, and it was scary, but I freaking did it.
Well, that is such good advice for anyone that's out there, especially if they're really committed. It can be they can succeed if they're just committed. Tell me about when you first got your first job at Chose. Who did you work for?
I worked for Marina Victor. She was the textile director. And that was my very first job in the fashion industry. And it was really cool because I had to go to different color sources to get the colors for the look at the I want to say the seasons, upcoming seasons for the fashion designer. So I'd have to get in the limo and go pick up, make appointments, and go to all these other color offices in New York and pick up either paint chips or yarns or fabrics to bring back so that the designers would have these for their storyboards.
So first, explain it because they're not understanding this. These are color services, and
Color services in New York.
like
They,
you remember the name?
yeah, like Pantone. There was one at J.C. Penney's. There was a Pantone. Oh my gosh, there's so many. But my position was to collect these sources. My director, Marina, my boss, she was the one that this would decide on the colors for the seasons, and she would also decide on the patterns for the fabrics. So the way that it worked was I cataloged the fabric artwork that was brought in. So artists would make appointments with my boss. They would come in and show her their artwork prints. So she would pick, this is for spring, this will be for summer, this will be for winter. And then the colors that were needed, she'd decide, well, I'm going to do this in this colorway. This one is going to work better in this other colorway. So then my job, after she'd decide what the color sources were going to be, what the color choices were going to be, was to collect those from those color services, bring them back, and then set up some of those colors on charts for the designers. And then you, Tina, would go into your meetings and discuss all of your fashion designs, and then the prints that were decided for those particular designs, like, what is it? Resort wear, spring, fall, summer, winter, holiday. So it was really interesting because then when I would catalog those artwork pieces, and the colors would be put together, and then appointments from the fabric mills would come in. So those people from that industry would make appointments, and whatever was decided, whatever I don't know, whatever the mileage was that they were going to go with these fabrics. Uh, let me see. Let me try to think. The amount of pieces that could be created from a certain amount of fabric is what was decided. And then the mills took these prints and the colors and they would go to produce the fabrics. And then we'd get back the samples. So what you see on printed fabric, every single artist that was part of that Chouse industry that came with a freelance, that's what we would see on the future Chouse pieces that were in the stores.
That's right. You're talking about colorways. You're
The
talking,
colorways, the paint chips, the color pieces that we would put onto onto the charts. That was fun. That was a lot of fun because then your designers would have your fashion designs all set out and you'd get so excited looking at all the possible, printed fabrics that will be forthcoming.
yep. And then that's when they come to us, when you guys did all your work, they
Yeah.
then come to us. And do you know how many seasons we had back then, Betsy? We had fall one, fall
Yeah.
two. We had
Hmm.
uh then we had holiday,
Yep.
and then there was two holidays delivery periods. Then we had spring. We had two spring deliveries, and then we had resort, and then we
Uh-huh.
had summer one and two. So I mean, nowadays I don't think they do what we did back then. We had a lot more delivery periods because I mean everything was being manufactured overseas. So
Right.
because you were, what's interesting is I always say the most important part of any designer is color first. Color.
Hmm. Yeah.
You have to pick your colors. And of course, the colors you pick have to work with the season that you're working with. Then
Right.
if there's a print, then you have to work on the print designs. You can take one print and then separate them in different colorways. Let's say this print is
Right.
going to have a white ground, a red ground, and a navy ground. Or this print is going to, it'll be just one print because it's a multicolor print and it doesn't look good in other colorways. So these
Yeah.
are things that designers have to think about: color, print. Then they have to think about fabrication, which fabrics they're going to use. Is it a
Right. And
knit?
whether is it a piece dye? Is it a yarn dye? That's part of it too. Like, is it a piece dye would be the entire fabric is printed on. So the image is printed on. A yarn dye is when each yarn is colored individually. So it's almost like a weave.
Yes. Oh my God, you're
Yeah.
brilliant. I love having this conversation with you. And then, and what about the lab dips? Like, since I was in the sweater and the knitwear department, we had to take those chips that you
Hmm.
then bring us, and I would have to send those over to Hong Kong or Taiwan or Korea, whoever who's getting our yarns dyed. And I
Right.
have to wait for those yarns to come back, and I had to, approve the lap dips. So they would
Yes.
send me like different shades of the navy, different shades of the green, and I would pick and approve the one I think is the closest to what the original swatch is. So then once that is done, then they go into dyeing the yarns because we
Yeah.
did all yarn dye. When it comes to knits, we only did none.
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
later on they started printing on the knit, but of course that's cheap because you can tell, you can turn on the other side and it's white, and then on the top it's print.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
Yeah.
harder, crackery. I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's a budget. That's like Kmart $2 shirts. I mean, whoever's watching this can go back to a store now and check
Yeah.
underneath of the garment and see, oh, this has been printed. This is,
Yeah.
you know,
And can you, and also, I don't know if you relay this to the students, but carded comb versus cotton,
well, yeah,
carded
well, yes,
versus combed.
yes. This is something I used to use the words, but never really knew what it meant back then. But now I do, because now
Yeah.
I'm like right around the corner, and I saw this workshop of how they took the hair of the animal, like a sheep or a llama or alpaca, and they washed it and then they boiled it in water. And I have a whole video that I'm going to put out that I actually videotaped this entire process. But combed and carded, I mean, at this point, I know that comb cotton is softer than carded,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes,
You
it
know?
is. So if you've got a nice t-shirt that's like $150 t-shirt versus a $20 t-shirt, and you feel both of them and one of them is super silky, that's the one that's combed.
That's right. And we we like combs, and we also like Angora sweaters.
That's true. That's so true.
So you know what else is something else I wanted to talk about. So from there, then we do, and how important are technical sketches, Betsy?
Very important. If you don't have a technical sketch, the factories don't know. They don't, they can't translate a beautiful sketch, a fashion illustration, into a pattern. A technical sketch is required. That is something that they can go off of, and they can cut the sizes according to those technical sketches. They create that pattern according to those technical sketches. Those contain every single inch, every single cut, every single stitch that should be on the finished product.
Exactly. And then you place your technical sketch into your spec sheet, and then you indicate all the measurements on your spec sheet. And those are the ones you end up faxing, or at that point we had fax machines.
We did faxed it over to Hong Kong. And then those fact sheets, once those samples come back, then we get the fit models in.
Uh-huh. And a lot of people don't even know about that particular job that exists, fit models. Nobody knows about that.
No, the fit models come in. We have the samples that have arrived, right? And then you'd sit there with the spec sheets, and the spec sheets should be in the same dimensions as these samples that have come in. So we've got the fit model that comes in. She tries on um, all of these samples, and sample by sample, according to each specific spec sheet, the corrections are made. So
And
if, let's say, take an inch off here, a 1/8 over there, this has to be longer, this has to be shorter. Let's do away with that button because it's going to cost so many more thousands of dollars to have that one button there. Then that's where all the specifics are entered and corrected before these pieces go into production.
right, and we call it protos or samples. Um,
Right.
and then those measurements are sent over back to the factory by the production department, because at that point that's out of our hands, the design department. We're still now designing for the next group and the next group and the next group. And
Right.
it's always in a size medium, because at that point it's always in the middle, and they grade up or they grade down.
Or grade down. Yes.
And that's all
Yep.
another job in the fashion industry for people who want to be in the production department. Maybe you don't want to be in the design department, or maybe you want to be in the textile department, which is what Betsy had started out doing. She was interning for the person that was in the textile, and that was the beginning stages. That's actually my favorite part.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah. It
that's
was fun. It was a lot of fun.
and
Um,
and then the even technical sketches are demanded in your portfolio, correct?
yes. Yeah. It's very important to understand what the technical sketches are all about and how to enter all of that information.
What is your idea now of dealing with the hand technical sketches versus the ones done on computer?
I think that there's a lot of advantages to computers and apps and everything. But at the end of the day, you still have to get that tape measure out. You still have to do the real measurements on real people, on real fabric. And then, the computer portion, that's a tool. But the skill in taking accurate measurements and adjusting and all that, that you really still have to do.
Exactly. And I've seen versions of what they call now tech packs. Because when I came back from Europe, this is already 20 years later, and they're calling it tech packs. I'm like, tech packs? What the hell's tech packs? I didn't understand that they meant by technical sketches, spec sheets.
Ah, oh, okay.
I took the
Yeah,
word.
I didn't either. I
I,
still call them spec sheets.
yeah, because I mean, tech packs. I'm like, it's just basically the set. It's like all
Right.
the spec sheets together, the technical package. I'm like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
it's really what it
Well,
seems. How
things do evolve and things change, but the craft of designing and sewing and sketching and cutting that pattern is still the same. It'll never change.
no, and do you really think that a designer could become a designer without knowing all the skills that we had to learn first? Can they just jump ladders?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there are a lot of people that sew at home and they just have a keen, good eye, but they're not designers. They make things for themselves, and there is something to be said for the education you need. It's even if you know a lot, adding to that by having an education in it is a world of a difference.
Oh,
Such a world of a difference. I mean, finishing a garment alone, finishes. I had a course in finishing, how to finish a garment, the many, many ways to finish a garment. That's when you turn a garment inside out and you see how it's made. There are so many ways. And this it's all according to the fabric that you're using, the knitwear that you're using. So yeah, this isn't something you would have learned at home, I don't think, unless you really are deep diving on online.
do you think you can even find those kind of things online nowadays? Because
No, that's specific to a fashion design school.
yeah, I mean, you're not going to find that. You'll find a lot of how-tos online about just, you can do this quick, but it's not going to be refined. It's not going to be like
N-
tailored. I mean, even
No.
tailoring is a dying breed. I mean, you don't just learn tailoring. You have to actually work with a tailor, and the
Yeah.
only place to do it now and before in the past was in Italy. It's the only
Yeah,
place.
my father was an expert tailor. And so I grew up around him making suits and taking them in and tailoring them. I mean, he was an expert tailor. The man was amazing, and he had the biggest wardrobe, bigger than my mom, suits and tuxedos. I mean, it was amazing.
You know what I found out, Betsy? Took me years before I found out. I found out that I have in my both sides of my family, my mom's and my dad's, my great grandfathers were famous tailors. I have
Oh
a
wow.
double whammy. I have it on my other side, the Brazilian side, and I have it on the Portuguese side.
I'm Puerto Rican.
See, but you
Yeah.
look so Italian.
Puerto Rican. My father had been sewing since he came to the United States, which was in his early 20s, maybe late teens. He literally came from Puerto Rico and he learned to sew in Puerto Rico to get by. And so when he came here, that's what he knew how to do. And he wound up sewing for one person and another, then eventually made his way over to Wall Street, and he was an expert tailor, as I said, for all of the big guys on the news, the anchors, the news anchors.
Oh, that's amazing. And
Yeah,
or if pick yardage, fabrics, then you go into the groups. Don't forget, every group has a theme and a name, right?
right.
So trend boards are for.
Trend boards are fun, and you're really good at those.
So when she took me under her wing, because I mean, she
Hmm.
went through a lot of interviews on finding a designer, because she was design director. And what she was prepping me for was to become the design director. I thought she was kind of tough, but yet sweet. And for some reason, I always looked up to her as my mother. And she made me literally sample. I had to sketch and spec and design every single sweater knit that was ever in existence. I mean, I swear to God, the samples were coming in and any possible ideas that could be done. I mean, stretching the ball out there like things that had not been done yet, pushing the factories to push the limit on what their possibilities were. I mean, that was the break. We were in the beginning of knitwear boom. And
Yeah.
I was a part of that. Like I was hired to do a Gold's Gym collection. And I was the first one to ever come up with putting stretch sheer mesh in between like slits. I was so far out there already before anything else was coming out. That's when I started the Melo reports in Germany because people saw
Yeah.
that. Our online academy, which I think is really important at this point, Betsy. Why do you think it's important?
Oh my gosh, the reach that this could get to, it would be wonderful. There's so many children and teens that don't know that these things are possible or accessible. Accessibility is the key. And why not? I mean, we have the knowledge
We have we have 30 plus years of knowledge here.
to help children, teens, grown-ups
Oh,
achieve a dream, achieve
yes,
their dreams. And
yes.
many people just leave it there on a shelf as a dream, and they shouldn't. And it's just a nice positive thing to do.
How many years do you have even ever come across? Oh, I've always wanted to be a designer. I mean, I can't even count over the years how many times people have said that. Let me put something together, but I'm going to do it in the real world. I mean, why? I'm not, I don't know any other way to teach.
I first met you and we started working together. It's like you have this natural knack for showing people how to do something. You were like, "Oh no, there's an easier way to do this. Let me show you." And you're not selfish about it. So that's what sets you apart from that kind of, I don't know, what people think in the industry, people are mean or tough, whatever. That sets you apart because you're not like that. You have so much to give of everything that you already know, so much to give to others, and you're not selfish about it. So, helping people achieve their dream of being a fashion designer or working in the fashion industry is like being a fairy godmother in a way,
Wow.
granting
I've
wishes.
been called a lot of things, but not a fairy godmother.
It's like
So
you're granting wishes, you know?
let me ask you a question too, because I know you've written this down as a letter of recommendation. When I left Chouse and then I was hired actually by Laura Greenberg, and I asked you to interview, and you interviewed, and I hired you. And you're like, but I
Yeah.
haven't graduated college yet. What'd you think about that?
Oh, I was like, hell yeah. You called me, and when I went over, I was just like, "Yes, I'm coming over." I just jumped at the chance. I said, "Yes, I'll take the chance." I remember, gaining confidence because I already had passion for the industry, but, the design aspect, it was like, I don't know, opening this big door for me because I thought, it could potentially be very intimidating, but working with you and for you and alongside you, it just made it seem so much better, so much real, and, I enjoyed that. I really appreciated that because as the industry is known, you know, there are not many very nice people, but there are, and you were one of them, and so that made a whole world of difference to me, and the confidence was right up there. I was just like, yes, this is the this is where I want to be. Seem as intimidating. You were kind of like about the same age, so it was like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And you were like, no, look, it's easier. Do it this way instead of that way. Because I don't think I had yet gotten to that part in my curriculum at FIT yet, and so just doing it live, real world, was really cool. Really cool.
You graduated with all A's, A pluses.
Yeah, I did continue with the fashion design, and then I also, transferred over to fashion design illustration. So, yeah, it just kept me going. It was a really great experience. I don't know, I was just looking through some things and remembering some people, and I'm like, "Fashion industry." And then I'm like, "I remember Tina Mello. I wonder if she'll remember me." And I just you and I think like 2 other people, I was like, "I wonder where they are in the world and what they're up to." And I just kinda Googled and I found you. Let me take a chance and just reach out to her. Popped into my mind as one of my, nice memories in the fashion industry.
Like, actually, I think you were the first one I ever hired.
Yeah, I think so.
I wish all my other former assistant designers would contact me, but I would love to find them, you know.
Yeah, we're
But
gonna have to do Google searches.
we're gonna go on a hunt now. We're gonna be bringing them all back, find out what they're doing now. So tell everybody what you're doing now.
Left the industry, wound up, having children, and moved to Florida, As you well know, in Florida, the fashion industry is not so terrific. So I wound up getting an education in computer animation and became a graphic designer for the Dolly Museum for, gosh, 13 years. And so I developed a lot of products along the way because it wasn't just graphic design for events and special exhibitions, but I also did product design. And so now I'm currently working with the sales department, and that's where I'm at today. But I also do lots of freelance artwork, and I'm spearheading art project challenges with other like-minded artists. And we've just got the approval for a staff art exhibition, the very first of its kind, and we're all excited about that.
Yes, and I'm so proud of you because it was your idea. You go, girl. You go,
Well,
girl.
here's
Yeah,
perseverance because A for perseverance, and this everybody listen out there, because no matter if you get a no, keep going, because I pitched the darn idea for 10 years and it finally got accepted. It could only get better from here.
you hear that, everybody? 10 years. So do you see how determined Betsy is? And it's true. I've been listening to all these workshops. And don't take no and just walk away. Just continue, pursue it. I just want to say that this online fashion design academy that I'm launching, I am bringing on people like Betsy, my former interns, and we're going to be bringing in a lot more and now share our knowledge. And there's people out there that just can sit there and dream all day. And now they can just do it at the privacy of their own home. They're going to learn from us. The best of the industry came back stronger and more powerful than ever. All right, everyone.
Absolutely.
So, Betsy, do you have any last words?
Just sign
Anybody?
up as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Look for all of these next info from Tina and just do it.
Awesome. Betsy,
Don't
are
give
you
up.
watching my Facebook page and you see my student, Bethany?
I sure have. She's amazing. She needs to just keep going with that energy, and she's going to make some great designs. I just know it.
She caught on so quick. She's got ADHD. Now, this is even more amazing. I mean, look what she's accomplishing and creating by herself. So, no matter what ability you think you're lacking in, trust me, when you find your passion, it doesn't matter what it is, you focus. Thank you so much for doing this live.
Thank you.
More. And next time we'll have you on the screen. Thank you so much, sweetie pie. Ciao, everybody. Love you.
Ciao.